Okay, teachers, welcome back to another week of Classroom Management by Design for the Primary Teacher. I am Lauren Zvi, and I'm the founder of Lesson Plan Toolbox, where we help primary teachers master classroom management. I've been in education for well over 20 years, and when I was assistant principal, I fell in love with helping my teachers come up with strategies to meet the needs of their students, and particularly classroom management strategies. Okay, so last week was a big topic. We talked about those big feelings, right? Extreme behaviors in the classroom. This week we are going to get into silencing the chaos in the classroom, right? We're going to talk about how to quiet a classroom full of interruptions, full of people talking over each other, and sometimes just being plain rude. So let's get into it. Okay, classrooms can sometimes feel like a whirlwind of noise, especially when students call out, they're talking over you, they might be engaged in some type of rude behavior. In environments like this, traditional methods like raising your voice or issuing warnings, they often fall flat. They simply don't work. You have to become more creative with how to approach these, right? We have to use our creativity to help restore the order and the respect in our classrooms. Because respect is a non-negotiable. So, in this segment, we are going to give you some strategies that address the root causes of these behaviors. And then we're also going to provide you with effective ways to quiet your classroom without losing your cool, without raising your voice. I was the voice raiser teacher at the beginning of my career. You know, between observing, watching, learning, you get better. You get better. So if you raise your voice or if you started there, don't feel bad. It happens. There are just times it happens, okay? Here's the first strategy we want to tell you about. The mystery reward techniques. When students constantly interrupt or talk over you, it is because they're seeking attention. It doesn't matter if it's positive or negative attention, but they want attention. So the mystery reward technique, this helps to harness that desire for attention in a positive way, though. Okay? By turning good behavior into a game. And students love when you gamify anything. So let me tell you how this works. I know you're probably like, what in the world is she talking about? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to start by introducing the concept of the mystery reward. The word mystery will probably already pique their interest. That's a great word to keep in your toolbox. This could be something extra. This could be something as simple as like an extra recess time or a fun class activity or maybe a small treat. My students always love those little cherry sour balls you can get at the store. Those are great. They only got one. That was it. What's the catch though? The reward is only revealed if the entire class manages to stay quiet and follow directions for whatever set period you have built in. You get to build the suspense by dropping hints throughout the day. This is going to keep that curiosity of theirs so piqued because they don't know what's coming. They love that anticipation, right? Make the mystery reward a recurring theme in your classroom. You want to keep them interested, so you do have to change the reward weekly to keep it fresh and engaging. And then over time, students will associate staying quiet, being respectful with positive outcomes. And you might just rotate it. You might only have 4. Like maybe 1 week they get the cherry sours. Maybe 1 week it's extra recess. Maybe 1 week it's a little bit of tech time at the end of the day. It is totally up to you. Okay? The whole goal is to reduce the need for constant reminders and to get them to stop talking over you and each other. That's the goal. This works so well because, again, that mystery element, it keeps the students engaged. While the group dynamic, this is the magical piece of it, it's encouraging peer accountability. your students are going to learn that following the rules can lead to like these exciting surprises, which gradually reduces your disruptive behaviors in your classroom, which is your goal. You have to be consistent with it, you have to be fair with it, but that's a fun one. The mystery reward, strategy 1. Strategy 2, the talking stick. Reinvented though. Talking stick reinvented. This is the ancient concept. I mean, this goes back to ancient days of the talking stick. This has been around long, forever and ever and ever. And the reason is because it helps to ensure respectful communication in group settings, right? It's even grown-ups do this one. To reinvent this for a modern classroom in our day and age, it helps your students understand the importance of taking turns, because that might not happen at home. Phone rings, grown-up might interrupt the kid as they're talking and start talking. But it's going to emphasize taking turns and listening to each other. Huge communication skills, right? How do you do this? To do this, you are going to introduce a physical object. It could be anything. It could be a fun microphone you find on Amazon. It could be literally a decorated stick you find outside and maybe just glue some jewels onto it. You might have a small little stuffy that you want as the talking stick. The trick is the only person holding the object is the person who speaks. When students begin to talk over you or they talk over each other, guess what you're going to do? You are going to very calmly say, "What is our rule for the talking stick? Do you have the talking stick? No. Should I be hearing your voice? No. Okay, then you need to wait until the talking stick is passed to you, but right now this student has the floor." You want to make sure everyone has a chance to use it because we're all going to want to use it. So just be mindful of that little timepiece, okay? But great strategy. Rotate the role of the talking stick holder during your class discussions or your question and answer sessions, okay? Encourage students to ask for the stick politely before speaking. Train them that. "Miss Sabika, may I please have the talking stick?" "Why, of course, yes you can." And then you walk it over to them. You're teaching them respect. You're teaching them taking turns, right? And that's what we want. Again, we just assume they know how to do these things, and they don't. They just don't. So these are ways we can teach them as educators. The physical presence of this talking stick, it reinforces the concept of the turn taking. It's that visual representation, and so many of our students are visual learners. Over time, your students are going to internalize this practice, and it's going to reduce instances of the talking over, right? "I don't have the talking stick. I can't be talking." So that is another super easy one to implement, super fun. They love it. If you feel a lull happening in your classroom, you might take that one, introduce it in the middle of the year even. Okay, the next one we kind of talked about as we were doing our beginning of the year things. This one is called the respect contract. So instead of a point system, you would create a respect contract that involves the entire class in setting the expectations and holding each other accountable, right? We talked about this classroom contract. Everybody has to have a part of it. Everybody has to sign it. Everybody has to have buy-in to it. This gives the students ownership over their behavior and promotes that sense of collective responsibility. Okay, so keep that in mind. So now you're probably thinking, okay, Lauren, how do I do this one? This one's not that tricky, right? Especially at the beginning of the year. You're going to collaboratively create this respect contract with your students. That's the trickiest part of this. This is not you going in and saying, here's what we're doing. You're working with them. You're doing this on day one of school. You're doing this on day one of school. Outline specific behaviors that demonstrate the respect, such as listening when others speak, using kind words, and raising hands before talking. All manners, right? I always call them classroom manners more so than contract. Then, of course, the key element of the ownership is you have each student sign the contract. Then you're going to hang it prominently in your classroom, very, very proudly. This is room choose contract. Here it is. Trick to this one. Revisit the contract on a regular basis. You especially want to do this after incidents of rudeness or disruption occur in your classroom. Hold a classroom meeting, either right then and there if you can, or before the end of the day, and then have your students discuss how well they were following the contract and suggest adjustments if needed. Again, let them have the conversation. This is going to keep that contract relevant, and it's not just a piece of paper on the wall. And it's going to be intentional for them. It's going to be at the front of their mind. They will know what is expected of them. Okay? This respect contract, it works so well because it's fostering that shared commitment towards positive behavior. It's not just the teacher telling. When your students feel involved in setting the rules, they are far more likely to follow them and hold their peers accountable. It's that simple. Okay, this next one I love. I have shared about this if you were in the challenge, but I'm going to share it here in the blog so everybody gets to hear it. The power of the pause technique. This is Jean. Yes, I love this one. Talking over the teacher often happens when your students feel their voices aren't being heard. Kind of remember that, okay? And take a step back. Be very honest with yourself. Here's how you do this, the power of the pause. Here's how this is going to work. The power of the pause technique, it turns this behavior on its head by giving your students designated times to talk and express themselves without interrupting the flow of your lesson. This is pure genius. It will take some getting used to, but when you get in the flow of this, you will love it. And it will diminish the talking that's happening in your classroom, okay? So here's how this is going to work. During your lesson, you are going to introduce, intentional pauses where students are invited to share their thoughts. They can share their thoughts, they can ask questions. Basically, it's a talk and turn. They can turn and talk to their neighbor. They can talk to you. You are going to make it clear that these are the only times for speaking, and anyone who interrupts outside of these power pauses, they will wait until the next one before they will be heard amongst the group, okay? You can use a timer. You can use a visual cue like a hand signal to indicate when the pauses are happening. You might clap your hands. That simple. It is magical. I never really cared what they said. If they just wanted to share what they had for breakfast, they got it out of their mind. They're going to be back focused listening to you. It might only be 30 seconds. Give them that 30 seconds. They're back focused listening to you, and their attention is there now, okay? You want to integrate the power of the pause into your lessons daily. Over time, your students will learn to hold their thoughts until the designated moments, which is going to reduce their urge to interrupt. You can also increase the duration between pauses as their patience improves. So at the beginning of the year, you might do this a lot. And then as you're creating your lessons, do the I do, we do, they do method. And then between each segment, have them do a turn and talk. Okay? This works so well because structured pauses give your students a clear expectation of when they can speak, which reduces that impulse to interrupt you, especially when you're teaching. It also teaches self-regulation for themselves, which is such a huge skill that our students, we know that they need to self-regulate, but we don't teach them how to do this. So this is a great way to do this. And it's just going to help give you that classroom order that you are looking for. Okay, we are up to strategy number 5. This is the Silent Partner Challenge. This one's a little bit tricky. For your students who constantly call out, the Silent Partner Challenge is An effective way to encourage that self-control that we want them to have, and also to become an active listener. Another huge component in the educational process. So this method is going to pair students together, and it challenges them to complete tasks without speaking out of turn. I told you it's a tricky one. It's a great one, but it's a tricky one. So you're probably thinking, how in the world do you do this? They want to talk and we're doing this silently. Here's what you're going to do. You pair students up and you give them a task that requires cooperation. This could be something like solving a puzzle at the beginning of the year or completing a worksheet together. Okay? What's the challenge, you're probably thinking? Your students can only communicate silently. They cannot talk. They can use gestures. They can use facial expressions. They can have written notes or pictures. But this is going to encourage them to focus on those nonverbal communication cues and listening rather than calling out. It's super fun, super tricky. You would use the Silent Partner Challenge as a regular classroom activity because they have to get used to learning how to communicate non-verbally, right? And if you do this over time, you're going to see your students will develop better self-control and have better communication skills, which naturally reduces the disruptions that are going to be happening in your classroom. The calling out, talking over you, talking over each other, okay? It's a fun one. Again, like I said, it's tricky. You might do this in first grade. Second and third grade could for sure handle this one. Maybe even kindergarten. Give it a try. Okay. This is why it works. That challenge element makes it fun, while the focus on the nonverbal communication is helping the students practice patience and their nonverbal cues. It's also helping them to show respect for others and to take turns speaking, waiting their turn, that active listening. Okay, so there you have it. We give you 5 techniques, and I'm telling you now, by using these creative, deeper strategies, you can transform a classroom filled with interruptions, talking over, the rudeness. You can turn it into one where there's respect, where there's cooperation, and it's just an all-around happy community. It's all about shifting the focus from merely stopping the bad behavior to teaching students why respectful communication matters, and then giving them the tools to succeed, which is what each of those strategies do. Have fun with this one. You might want to read about this one. You might want to listen to this again. It's totally up to you, but there you have it. All yours. Okay, until next week. We'll see you soon.